Hello, and welcome to part 2 on our series of how a Christian can be deceived. In our last lesson, we looked at the definitions of the word deceive and to deceive, and we also looked at how God showed us that, one, there are deceivers in the church, and that it is possible for Christians to be deceived. Then we started to look at 10 reasons on how or why a Christian can be deceived. In this lesson, we're going to pick up with number 3. So if you'd like, I'd encourage you to go back and see part 1 so you can get the first 2 points. Let's continue on now with the third reason why it's possible for Christians to be deceived. 3 is because many Christians misunderstand the definition or the true meaning of love and unity. Oftentimes, Christians are willing to overlook differences, willing to overlook essential doctrinal differences in the name of love or for the sake of unity. They don't want to appear to be too judgmental. That's a big phrase that the unsaved people throw out, that the world likes to throw out. Are you judging me? Don't be judgmental. You don't want to be dogmatic. That's almost like a curse word today. So we want to come across as loving. We don't want to appear to be narrow-minded. We don't want to appear to come across as it's my way or the highway kind of thing. So we tend to, in the name of love and unity, we accept teachings that are not true. You see that, as I started to mention in the last lesson, there's a lot of teaching today. There's dealings with Muslims today. Are they really our brothers? Well, as long as we all believe in God. You may call them by a different name, but if you believe in God, then it's okay. Everything is all right. Roman Catholicism is another one. We both believe in Jesus, and we believe that salvation is through Jesus, but one says it's by grace, the other says it's by grace and works, and yada, yada, yada. What's a bigger thing that's even happening today, and should be a big red alert, is that there are more and more people saying you don't have to believe in Jesus in order to go to heaven. That Jesus Christ is not the only way. There are other ways. He's one way, but there are other ways. And who are we to say that there's not another way? We just leave that in God's hands. That's what a lot of, quote, even evangelical pastors are trying to say today, and teachers, that I don't deal with that kind of stuff. I just love people and I don't want to cause division. I'll just leave that in God's hands for a later time. Let me explain something. This is a false definition, a false understanding of what real love and what unity is, and what God calls for in love and for what God calls for in unity. Love that is not founded in truth is not really love. It's a farce. It's a deception. There's nothing, if we use the word deceive, you can now think of the word love in the same thing. And if what you're saying you're doing in love, if it's not based on truth, it's not what God wants us to be doing. It is not an act of love to allow someone to go to hell. It is not an act of love to back away from things and say, well, I just don't want to deal with it. I don't want to appear confrontational. So we'll just let them believe what they want to believe. And as I heard one pastor say, I'll let God sort that out later. If ever there was a dumb statement made, I mean, that's one of them. That's not his worst one, but that's one of them. We'll let God sort it out later. When God sorts it out later, it's too late. It's got to get sorted out now. When you're standing in front of God, it's too late to find out whether you had salvation right or whether you had it wrong. We cannot simply get away from the truth because we're using the disguise of love. Love is a commitment to truth. It's not the avoidance of truth. Love is looking for the highest good of others. When you're dealing with areas of salvation, if you truly love a person, you are going to tell them the truth, whether it upsets them or whether it doesn't upset them, whether they like it or whether they don't like it. Look at a doctor, a medical doctor. Can you imagine if in the name of love and unity, because he didn't want to upset you or cause division, or maybe you might leave him and go to another doctor, or that he turns around and doesn't tell you the truth? You have a deadly disease, one that could be cured, one that could be taken care of, but he doesn't want to tell you about it because it might upset you, because he knows you don't really want to hear that. It might upset your day or your week. So he lies to you. Or he says, don't worry about it. Deal with it later. Any doctor who truly did that would lose his medical license. He can't refrain from giving you the truth simply in the guise or the name of love, or he doesn't want to upset you. There's a lot of preachers who lose their license to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ because they refuse to tell the truth. Biblical love insists on truth and true doctrine. Listen to Galatians 4:16. Paul says here, have I therefore become your enemy because I tell you the truth? He was talking to the Jews here and telling them the right way of salvation and what they need to think and what they need to believe here and what God is telling them. They didn't like it. He says, have I therefore become your enemy because I tell you the truth? What's he saying here? I'm telling you the truth. I shouldn't be considered an enemy. I should be considered someone who clearly cares about you and who truly loves you. Because I love you, I tell you the truth because it's for your own good. And notice here, he was telling them the truth. He didn't let the term love or lack of unity stop him from saying the truth. Ephesians 4:14 and 15. Listen to what God says here. We should no longer be children tossed to and fro, carried about with every wind of doctrine, by the trickery of men and the cunning craftiness of deceitful plottings. You see the deception? But speaking the truth in love may grow up in all things unto him who is the head of Christ. Don't be deceived in the name of love. That's what he's saying here. We should not be cast aside with every wind of doctrine by the trickery of men. People that are saying this are tricking you. They're deceiving you. But God says, speak the truth. Speak it in love. But that's what love is. Don't go out there and use the Bible as a hammer to pound people over the head with things and beat them up and cause division and strife for the sake of causing division and strife. With a loving, kind, and caring spirit, you speak the truth. That's love. That's what love really is. Unity. Unity means to be in agreement. Just that simple. To be in agreement. Listen to what God says, Ephesians 4:11 through 13. And he gave some apostles and some prophets and some evangelists and some pastors and teachers for the equipping of the saints, for the work of the ministry, for the edifying of the body. Why? Till we all come to the unity or agreement of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God, to a perfect man, to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ. God wants us to come to a unity of the faith. He doesn't want to have this belief here and this belief here and this over here, and you can believe what you want and you can do what you want and you can do this, and we'll just let God sort it all out later on after we stand before him. That's a deception from Satan. That's a deception from false teachers. God says, I gave you prophets, I gave you evangelists, I gave you pastors, I gave you teachers so that you could come together on what the truth is. That's what God wants. And why does he want us to come together? Listen to the last verse. That we should no longer be children, tossed to and fro and carried about with every wind of doctrine by the trickery of men and the cunning craftiness of deceitful plottings. Remember in the last lesson we said there are deceivers in the church. There are wolves out there, ferocious wolves, who are trying to deceive or trying to trick people or trying to lure them. God says you need to come through the love of the truth, through the truth spoken in love. We need to come to an agreement, to a unity, so that we are not deceived by people. You don't just fluff it off and then you wind up being deceived. God says that the unity is to come together in agreement here. In 2 Corinthians 6, God says, do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what communion has fellowship with righteousness? And what communion has light with darkness? God says there is a time to come out. He goes on to say, come out from among them. Touch not the unclean thing. God isn't always looking for just get together with everybody so everybody can be happy and peppy and bursting with love. There is a time to separate yourself. What fellowship does the believer have with the unbeliever? What fellowship does light have with darkness? Truth with untruth? God says there's a time to come out. Well, Jesus wants us to love everybody. Jesus wants us to all get along and to be happy. Really? Listen to Mark 10, verse 34 through 36. This is Jesus speaking here. He says, do not think that I came to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. Should I repeat that? Do not think that I came to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's enemies will be those of his own household. Now, What is God saying here? That takes a little bit of studying, but quickly to put it together, God's not saying I just came here to cause division and make people get upset and to turn families against families, but he's saying I came to bring you the truth, and here's the truth of my word. And if you stand on the truth, in some families, that's going to cause a problem. How many people won't come to Christ because it'll upset their parents, because it'll upset someone in their house, in their family? How many times when people have converted to true Christianity, their family says, we ostracize you now, we throw you out. It's caused division. God says, even if it causes division in your own family and sets this member against that member, you must believe the truth. You must follow the truth. So what are we saying here? God does not say for the sake of love and for the sake of unity and for the sake of just getting along, don't worry about the truth. Just let's everybody be happy. Let's all get together. Let's make it all happen the way we want it to happen. And I'll straighten it all out later. Absolutely not. God says you speak the truth in love and you believe it, and you believe it now. Number 4, let me move on. Number 4, reasons of why we are deceived, or why a Christian can be deceived. Number 4 is Satan. Satan is a master deceiver. He's tremendous at doing this, and he loves to deceive us. 1 Peter 5:8, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. He goes about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 9 and 10. The coming of the lawless one is according to the working of Satan, with all power, signs, and lying wonders, and with all unrighteous deception among those who perish, because they did not receive the love of the truth, that they might be saved. What should we be loving? We should love the truth. Here's Satan. He comes along. He has great power. He has signs. He has lying wonders. He can do many marvelous things that look like it must be from God when it's not. And God says here, with all unrighteous deception among those who perish. Why? Because they didn't love the truth. They'd rather believe the lies, or they followed the lies. I'm going to be kind of short here with Satan. I did do a study before. There's another 6-part series, I believe it's 6 parts, that I have on Satan and how he attacks the mind of the Christian, of how he works through deception, how he works through doubt, how he works through lies. I would refer you to that for a more in-depth look. But it's enough to know right here that Satan is a master deceiver. He can appear as the angel of light so that he might deceive us. But I would encourage you to watch that other 6-part series on how Satan deceives. Let's move on now to number 5. This is a very, very, very important one. Number 5, how or why a Christian can be deceived. False teachers appear to be real. They don't come in and go, hey, guess what I am? I'm a false prophet. And when I'm telling you, you're really crazy if you believe this, but I'm going to tell you anyhow, because it's going to make you happy. No, they appear to be real. They appear to look like the right thing. The best way to deceive someone is to appear like the right thing. How do counterfeiters do it? When they make counterfeit money and they walk up to a register or walk up here and put that money down on the counter. That money doesn't look like Monopoly money. Imagine walking up to a cashier with Monopoly $100 bill or $500 bill and hand that little yellow or orange thing down there and go, could you cash the, could you make change for this, please? They'd laugh you out of the store. They go, are you crazy? You're not going to use Monopoly money. When they make counterfeit money, they make it look as real as possible. They make it look as close to the real thing as they can possibly get it. That's the part of counterfeiting. That's the part of deception. That's what they try to do, and that's what the false prophets do. They try to look as authentic, they try to look as real as they possibly can. They try to sound as true and as righteous as they possibly can. But in reality, they are not what they appear to be. Just like the counterfeit bill is not like what it appears to be. It's false. It's useless. It's of no value. So is the false teacher. They're counterfeit. They're fake. They're deceptive workers. God calls them wolves in sheep's clothing. They appear to be a sheep. They appear to be part of the flock. They appear to be like the shepherd. They appear to be sent from God. But underneath, they're deceiving you. They're fake. They're counterfeit. So just because something looks to be real, and just because something may sound to be real, doesn't mean it's real. And that's why a lot of people get deceived, because things, what does the Lord say in Matthew 7? Many people will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not done many wonderful things in your name? Cast out demons in your name, perform miracles in your name. And what does God say? I never knew you. Depart from me, you that work iniquity. They used the name of the Lord. They did things that appeared to be wonderful things, the signs and wonders that Satan can do in the name of the Lord. And yet God says, I never knew you. You were never one of mine. You were never truly mine. You're a deceptive worker. You're a false prophet. You're a false teacher. Out! Get out! Cast them into hell. That's powerful. And that should be a mega warning to you and to me that we need to be careful of who we're listening to. God says, Matthew 7:15, beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves. God gives us the warning. 2 Corinthians 11:13 through 15. For such men are false apostles, deceitful workers, false apostles, deceitful workmen, disguising themselves as apostles of Christ. And no wonder, for even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. So it is no surprise if his servants also disguise themselves as servants of the righteous. Their end will correspond to their deeds. See what I mean? So we need to be aware of that false prophets, false teachers appear to be real. We need to be on our guard. We need to watch out for them. What is the best way to recognize what is false? Know what is true. Know the truth. You can't study every single false teaching out there. You can't study every false doctrine. You can't study thoroughly every false cup. So what you do is you study, and you can be aware of these things and know about them. That doesn't hurt. But study what is real. Study what is truth. Then when you know what is real, when you know what is true, when the false comes along, you'll know it immediately. That's what the Secret Service does with counterfeiting money. They don't spend all their time looking at all the counterfeits. How can they counterfeit this, and how can they counterfeit that, and how do they do this? They have a knowledge of things that are done, but they spend the vast majority of their time studying what is real. What does a real bill look like? When they get that down so fantastically, then when they see something that doesn't match it, boom! They immediately know that it's false, because there may be something there they never studied before. They didn't know you could do it this way. But when they know what's real, bingo, there it is. There's all kinds of false teachings come down the pike every single day. All new things going on, all things happening. You can't keep up with all of them. But how do you recognize it? Because if it starts to detour from what is the truth, then a red light goes on. Then you go, hey, something's wrong here. I don't know this is not quite lining up with the way it should be lining up. That's how you keep yourself to recognize what appears to be right, what appears to be truth, what appears to be real, but is actually a counterfeit. Well, I've only got 2 done this time. I was hoping to get 3 or 4 done, but time is going by, so I think I'm going to stop there. We'll pick up in part 3. I think this is going to lengthen it apart. I said it was a 4-part series, but maybe it'll become 5 now. I hope that you'll look into part 3, and we'll continue on looking at 10 reasons or 10 reasons why how a Christian can be deceived. Thank you for watching, and may God bless you.